You know, I had a dream once, a fantasy, I guess you could call it, in which I was invited onto Beyonce's private jet. Yeah. To my left sat Nicki, to my right, Riri, and we proceeded to bond over mimosas and light bites. That eventually led to a casual friendship that spanned many, many years, and eventually I was the one people would think of when they thought, who could we use to award them with a Lifetime Achievement Award? I was the first person who would come to mind. It's not that that was ever super likely to happen before, but I fear that with the release of today's opinion piece, it's definitely not happening now. But it must be done. So, hello everyone. My name is T, if you're new here, and our relationship with the bodies of Black women superstars are fucked. Now, the archetype of the Black woman superstar is actually going extinct. To be quite honest, I mean, we do have very many popular stars of today, but as far as the internationally, interculturally, intergenerationally celebrated performers go, we only got a few left, and they're all on the private jet in my dream. And it's very interesting, the stark difference between what they had to do to communicate beauty and desirability and what these new girls are doing.
He wanna menage with a new body. Man, you niggas can't fuck with me. Cause bitch, I bet my nigga way before the BBL. Bitch is twice my age, but I ain't half as paid.
I invested in my body, bitch, I'm done up. I look good, I like to fuck, I'm when the sun up.
And it's cool and it's fun, it's the key, and it's cute. But let me merely suggest my observations that Beyonce has allegedly, but IMO very obviously had a BBL and eventual reversal. Let me just ponder the thought that Nicki has been renewing butt enhancements like software updates for at least the past decade. Let me just dance with the idea that Rihanna has maybe possibly had an almost but not quite unclockable boob job. And y'all about ready to roll out the guillotine. Off of my blood clot head? That will not be necessary today. Lower your weapons. So of course, we can speculate about who has had what done, when, and why. And trust me, I was very tempted to take this video in that direction because please do not let all of this uppity wordplay fool you, okay? At the end of the day, I am literally just a teenage girl in her late 20s, and gossiping is fun. But once I get past the tee-hee of it all, I was really drawn to explore why the desirability of Black women superstars ever had to meet a standard of secrecy in the first place. Like, what was there to protect, really? And how did that thing, whatever it was, so quickly lose importance that we ended up in the very openly manufactured beauty market that we know of today? And finally, I gotta talk about how all of these findings have impacted my discussion of my devotion to this monster we call beauty. I'm really excited for today's video, but first, a quick word from our sponsor. This portion of today's video is sponsored by Dipsea. What makes topics like this so fun for me is finding out all the different ways that a fantasy can be communicated. Typically it's visually, but with Dipsea, I'm also now discovering audio. Dipsea is an app full of hundreds of short, erotic audio stories designed by women for women. With Dipsea, you can discover stories about everything from second chance romances to vacation flings, even sneaky links. New content is released every week, so whether you want to have the same stories on repeat or a new thrill every 7 days, Dipsea is an excellent place to explore. My favorite thing about Dipsea is their inclusion of straight and queer stories, and 56% of stories are voice acted by people of color. Coming in at a close second favorite would have to be the flame indication in the buffer bar, which tells you exactly which part of the story things begin to heat up. Now I know, patience is a virtue, but sometimes I'm just trying to get to the point. And thank you to Dipsea for understanding that. If you're ready to sonically explore your fantasies, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/tnoir. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to dipseastories.com/TEENOIR. And of course, thank you to Dipsea for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Chapter 1, Making the Mythos. The Black woman superstar is transcendentally significant. Her influence is so diverse, it can be found in all of these different, sometimes unrelated aspects of pop culture. For example, Nicki Minaj is not only responsible for revolutionizing rap music, but her name and likeness are also associated with a Barbie doll. I know that seems normal now, but prior to Nicki, that did not exist. It was Nicki's influence that helped bridge that gap. Same thing with Rihanna and tattoo culture, and Beyoncé and lace wig culture. Their grandeur is just so diverse. You will find all these little sprinkles of their influence in all these little pockets of pop culture that don't even necessarily have to be related to their core image of being musicians. And for better or worse, their physical bodies are no exception. When it comes to Black women superstars, the media often facilitates fragmentation, which in this context, I mean spotlighting a specific part of a woman's body, treating it as its own entity, separate from the person, and creating a fantasy around it. Take, for example, Tina Turner's legs or Megan Thee Stallion's knees. Her knees, y'all. With Beyoncé, the main exemplar of today's video, the fragmentation of her body is unceasing to this day. From Beyoncé's hair, to her skin, to her stomach, to her ass, I could easily name you like 1,001 rumors and theories that have been started about these things. I could name you trends that were influenced by these things. I could name you movies and songs that have referenced these things. These body parts, y'all, not the person, just the parts. This kind of referencing and just general fixation is what has earned Beyoncé's body its own mythos. Its own exaggerated, potentially fictitious idea of how it came to be and what it represents. But before we get into that, y'all mind if we do a quick little history recap? That all right? Cool with everyone in the back? Okay. In the early 1800s, believing the promise that she would make a fortune, Sargie Sarah Baartman was flown from Cape Town, South Africa to London by her employer Hendrik Cesar. Upon arrival in Europe, Sarah was set to be put on display in a circus. Marketed as the Hottentot Venus, Sarah was dressed in costumes meant to emulate nudity and animal prints meant to suggest feral sexuality. For 2 shillings, white European onlookers got to gawk at and even poke at Sarah's body. Shortly after, Sarah was moved to Paris and sold to an animal trainer. She was displayed at private gatherings of the wealthy, and I'm sure you can imagine what went down at those gatherings. And in 1815, after being sold several times, Sarah Baartman ultimately died penniless. But unfortunately, even in death, Sarah's body was not given enough respect to be left alone. Shortly after she died, French anatomist Georges Cuvier dissected Sarah's body and preserved her brain, skeleton, and genitals, which were placed on display in France's Musée de l'Homme for 150 years thereafter. So of course I'm about to make a connection, but I have to consider the context, such as the time, the place, and of course the agency of the women themselves. All of those things don't exactly make the story of Sarah Baartman a one-to-one comparison with the sexual images of Black women superstars of today. But there are similarities. Sarah was a Black woman who was thrusted into white popular culture, and she was ogled at because the shape of her body and the hue of her skin was just so different from what these white European spectators were used to seeing. It's eerily similar how people reacted to Beyoncé's body when she stepped on the scene. When Beyoncé emerged in the late 90s, early 2000s, her body was a brand new image. At least for the global pop mainstream. I mean, we knew. But they did not know. At that time, pop culture idealized white skin, extreme thinness, and curvature really only celebrated in the boobs, not the butt. So for Beyoncé and other women of color, such as Jennifer Lopez. Who wrote this? I wrote it. But, Oh, you see, there's an asterisk by it. I was supposed to fact check that. Okay. Because I could have sworn, I thought she was a white Puerto Rican. Okay. So for Beyoncé, full stop, to enter the scene specifically at that time, the fixation on her body was OD.
Beyoncé is shaking everything up. She's one of the biggest names in music with one of the hottest bodies.
I think what makes Beyoncé a hot rock body is that she's got curves and she's proud of them.
You can bet centuries from now, people will still be talking about the R&B perfection that is Beyoncé Knowles.
She's made the best out of the type of body that she has, which is really strong, curvaceous, and it's really sexy.
And Beyoncé was the perfect person to usher this in because she sits right on the cusp of ambiguity. And side note, about, it must have been like 2 years ago at this point, because I remember it was right around a couple months after the whole Jessie Nelson situation happened. Yeah, so I was talking to FT Signifier and he was saying that he actually credits Beyonce's emergence as the blueprint for the whole blackfishing debacle, the whole blackfishing epidemic that these non-black girls be on these days, because she is just so emblematic of ambiguity. And I could not agree more, so I'm gonna expand. So ambiguity of all sorts Beyonce means, right? Obviously racial ambiguity with Beyonce's lighter complected skin and her access to lace front technology a clean 15 years before the general public. Let me tell you something. Looking back on those wigs, was it always given straight from the root? Not exactly. But back then, you could not tell us that that was not giving scalp. That was not giving mixed bodily ambiguity. So she was thin enough to evade fat phobia, but plump enough in the desirable areas to be considered curvy. And of course, a massive fixation was formed around that. Now, Beyonce didn't exactly ignore this. At times, she even fed into it through songs like Bootylicious, Crazy in Love, you know, the uh-oh dance. Beyonce communicated that she was aware of how we perceived her body. She was aware of the culture's fascination with it and their curiosity about it, but in only passively addressing it. She was able to uphold the interest without completely demystifying it. Ugh! Mother is so smart. So like, this was absolutely genius, especially for longevity's sake, because like I said, to this day, the mythos of Beyonce's body has not let up for a second. So that was very, very smart. But I see the downsides because it also planted a seed of consumer obsession that has been very alarming at times. You know, I think of when she was pregnant with Blue. First of all, when she announced her pregnancy, Twitter damn near broke in half with a reported nearly 9,000 tweets per second. So people were already invested in the story that the Beyonce was going to be having a baby. But when rumors started to spark that she was faking her pregnancy, oh, y'all took that far. Y'all took that really far, too far. And I have a theory that nobody really gave that much of a fuck as to whether or not Beyonce was faking her pregnancy. Though I do believe that she was pregnant. I mean, like, come on. But even if she wasn't, and she still wanted the world to believe that she was, so? But either way, people didn't care. They didn't actually care. That's what I'm trying to, that's my point, okay? Y'all's concern was fake news. I think that the real reason why people gave that rumor so much life was because with the announcement of her pregnancy, it introduced a new part of Beyonce's body for us to fixate on, and that was her womb. I know, listen, it is gross. It is as gross as it sounds. Because did we not get enough? Did it actually get so deep that we had to create rumors about the inner workings of her uterus? Think about your life choices. Whenever I make a video like this, you know, being highly analytical of a celebrity or of celebrity culture, inevitably there will be someone who's like, I mean, who really cared? Fully and voluntarily clicked on my video asking me who cares. You do. And to a very weird and intrusive extent. But anyway, the emergence of Beyonce's body, specifically at that point in time, was groundbreaking for desirability standards. And I think it was one of the first markers of the slim thick obsession that we are all familiar with in the global mainstream. And that would subsequently blaze the trail for yet another Black woman superstar to come in and enhance this imagery in her own fashion. Chapter 2. A new standard. We have reached the Nicki portion. I am officially licensed. I am so excited for this. Oh my goodness. We about to get on the plane with Dwayne. So when Nicki stepped on the scene, the craze around her ass was intense.
And we're gonna say a word that refers to the famous body part of yours.
So what? It's Nicki Minaj's ass. Why wouldn't you kiss it?
All right. Well, we appreciate you
See
joining
how
us
plumped
today,
it looked in
Nicki.
the Super Bass video?
You're living under a rock if you didn't notice that this was the year of the booty.
Oh, yeah.
And your booty was definitely a part of your life and our lives this year.
Right.
What is it about our attraction to the booty all of a sudden? Why?
And it's interesting because, and of course this is all speculation, this entire video is, but Nicki's titties ain't real neither. So, can I say though, Nicki stepped on the scene and continues to maintain one of the best boob jobs I have ever seen. Oh, so the Eva Bless breasts. So good, she looks amazing. But anyway, nobody really seemed to care about that. All anyone wanted to talk about was the booty. And here's my theory as to why. Nicki's body was really close to what hip hop had already propped up as the ideal image of sexual objectification. That body type is typically what you would have seen in the background of videos, you know, adorning the talent, video vixens and stuff like that. But with Nicki being the talent, right? With her being the star, we got to see this body type as the sexual subject, not just the sexual object. And she was the only. For a minute there, Nicki was the only woman on the scene. So she was reviving a dormant sector of rap, which was women's rap, and she was revolutionizing the whole damn thing across genders all by herself. And she was doing all of these major historical things, again, with a body type that was already celebrated in rap, but through her superstardom, she was able to blast the doors open and make it visible in the global pop mainstream. You noticing a trend here? Through Nicki, and this is a bold statement, I know, but I stand by this. Through Nicki, the imagery of extreme butt enhancements was given more attention, it was given more respect, and it was made more lucrative. That is what Nicki has gifted the culture of plastic surgery. In hindsight, but while she was in it back then, she too still had to maintain a mythos. She had to be very, very passive about her body. She would talk about it sometimes, you know, Nicki would show it off sometimes, but certainly not like how it is these days. Like these days, I don't know if I should say this next part, because if this came out of a man's mouth, I would be very upset. But like, we know how Nicki's body looks. We proper know what the cheeks look, right? Because she shows it. We're familiar with it. But back then, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, remember, Nicki came out in like 2009. And then a song like Anaconda, which was meant to celebrate that part of her body, that didn't come out till 2014. Nicki's butt was a huge topic of conversation for 5 years. 5 years before she was ever even slightly celebratory of it. And then even then, she would never directly say, was it enhanced or was it not? So she was in a constant balancing act of not drawing too much attention to her body, but not being so on the hush about it that the spectacle died out. Man, sometimes I feel like we are so far removed from that time that we forget the fucking fire Nicki had to walk through barefoot to lay down a smooth path for surgery culture amongst Black women in the mainstream, especially Black women rappers. And that's why these bitches are her sons. It's part of the reason. It's part of the reason. The emulation of Nicki's image is the standard. Like, let's be real. You know, see, this is one of my gripes about Nicki. Sometimes she'll get in these moods where she is just insufferable about receiving gratitude from the rappers who came in after her. But I get the vibe that Nicki doesn't just want them to say thank you. It's like she wants them to approach the altar, bow down, kiss the ring, and admit that they just wouldn't exist without her. And that's obviously not gonna happen, but it doesn't have to. It really doesn't have to, because anyone who has been awake Like, you don't even have to be super entrenched in pop culture. If you have simply not been asleep at any point from 2009 to now, you know that when Nicki hit the scene, shit just got different. Things started looking different, they started sounding different. And this is not just with rappers, this is with singers too. You know, reality TV stars, baddie culture, which we talked about a couple videos ago. Everything, everybody, everywhere. Let me hear you say thank you, Nicki. And then, of course, with the help of the Kardashians, this imagery also made its way into white culture and everything thereafter. And before you knew it, we were in the midst of a BBL epidemic. And when I say epidemic, I do not say that lightly. As I discussed in my Kardashian commentary, the enhanced aesthetic is no longer exclusive to celebrities. It is the barista, it is the ICU nurse, it is the IG model, is everybody. So let's revisit the timeline. This all started with Beyoncé. In my recollection, at least. Because somebody gonna be like, well, you know, actually, in the 1980s, I wasn't here yet. Teenage girl in her late 20s. I was not here yet, okay? So starting with Beyoncé, she comes on the scene and she popularizes this image of slim thickness. Through the mythos of Beyoncé's body, there is now a mainstream curiosity about this particular body type. Beyoncé was not the first person to have this body type. She popularized it in the global mainstream though. Okay, years later, Nicki comes on the scene and popularizes an image of slim thickness enhanced. Slim thickness concentrate, if you will, which leans further into the curiosity of an image that Beyoncé already set the tone for, but this image was far more pronounced. Years after that, through the witnessed success of Nicki's imagery, and again with the help of the Kardashians, this becomes the standard. We start to see this image emulated across races, I mean shit, even across genders, but in a far more exhibitionist type of way. There is no more mythos, there is no more balancing act. Instead, there is a brand new system of incentive. Thus and such, as the years go by, this look gets more and more exaggerated and extreme, and here we are. This is our current normal. And you know, as much as people would like to say that, you know, they hate this trend, they cannot wait for the BBL look to just die out and go away, can we all at least admit that it works like a charm? You want attention, you want access to exclusive social spheres, you want to climb up that desirability hierarchy and stay there? Yeah, go ahead and take them 8 weeks off of work. Go ahead and put in that PTO request, book that flight to Miami, book that nonstop to DR, because that's gonna get you there. We have witnessed with our own eyes how meeting this look can change everything for a person. So, in 2019, in or around 2019, when Beyoncé, again, one of the originators of this domino effect, popped out and said, hey, I want to look like that too. I want to meet that standard too. I see why every time I bring it up, people start acting a fuck-ass fool. Actually, hold on a second. Let me extra clarify this, because I know how you girls love to tussle and lose. This video is not to persuade anyone that Beyoncé has had plastic surgery, though I do believe she has, but instead, it's to take the thought of her having it out of that unfathomable box. Like, it really shouldn't be that absurd and hard to believe. And in doing so, we have to take her desirability out of this divine, untouchable box. You know, in these conversations, the first thing people reach for is, oh no, it's not plastic surgery, she just had kids. Oh no, she just gained weight. And that might be true. I do not take that from you, beloved. I do not take that from you. However, it is interesting, to say the least, how forces such as aging, childbearing, weight gain, fucking gravity, understandably change almost every woman's body, except Beyonce's. You know, she might pop out with a little fupa, and we can accept that. But everything else, oh no. Things like A belly full of stretch marks, sagging boobs, noticeable cellulite, you know, normal things that happen to women's bodies as they get older and go through the motions of life. And then the desire to change that through surgical interventions. Oh no, that might be for us regular bitches, but it simply could never be in Beyonce's ministry. Of course, when it comes to her bodily changes naturally fall into all the desirable places without any manipulation. Except, of course, exercise for her career, which, coincidentally, we also treat as this perfect, untouchable thing. At a certain point, my loves. Chapter 3. Maybe she's born with it. But it's like totally okay if she wasn't. I think we would prefer to believe that fame, especially fame where beauty is eminent, is a machine purely of luck, a machine purely of like the it factor. And when it comes to collectively adoring someone, well, they're just getting the love that they naturally deserve. And this is why I had to put the Mythos chapter first, because it's not solely our fault. Like, these superstars, they uphold the facade as well, because it's comforting. With public-facing Black women especially, part of Black excellence's Black girl magic's masquerade is its claim of being intrinsic. It sells the narrative that the external image you see, whether that's our beauty, our success, our wealth, is not on us. It's in us. And that's what makes it magical. That's what makes it excellent. Even though the reality is the opposite, like by far. Excellence, intelligence, talent, that shit goes uncelebrated all the time when it doesn't come in a desirable package. But we give beauty so much power, we give body so much power, that we accept the lie that when we come in contact with and celebrate beauty, like when we come in contact with a superstar, that it's some sort of a divine practice, and that's just humanity's natural order. But now that we're in a different time, and through mediums like social media, we know that almost all the beauty we see is manufactured to some capacity. While we might be able to accept it for these new stars, like we have no problem when we find out that people have gotten fillers or surgery or cake on a whole bunch of makeup every time we see them. When we have to go back and confront that many of our golden child celebrities like Beyonce, they too actively sought out attention, and even if they didn't actively seek it out, they were prepared for it. They anticipated it. That brings human elements back into play that just, it stresses people out. You know, you tell a Beyonce fan she's had surgery, instant foaming at the mouth, because it challenges the concept of beauty as a whole, thus and such challenging our own self-image. Or maybe it's just mine. Maybe. If I can't believe that someone out there meets a standard of pure, pristine physical beauty, and that beauty is bionic enough to defy the oh so demonic forces of aging and childbearing and weight gain without any outside intervention, at that point it leaves me wondering, what is there left for us to aspire to? What is there left for us to defy? Pondering a question like, does Beyonce have insecurities? No, like for real, because she's open enough to write a song like Flaws and All and kind of dance with relatability that way. But does she share with us the feeling of being conscious of her placement in the desirability hierarchy? Why, yes, of course. Why, yes, of course. We know the answer is yes, because even prior to the alleged surgeries, Beyonce has been no stranger to extreme bodily manipulation. The way she sat up on Oprah talking about she was drinking cayenne pepper water to lose 20 pounds for her role in Dreamgirls. The way she parted her lips and spoke into a microphone to tell us that for Coachella, when she was less than a year postpartum, that she was doing no meat, no sugar, no carbs.
In order for me to meet my goal, I'm limiting myself to no bread, no carbs, no sugar, no dairy, no meat, no fish, no alcohol. And I'm hungry.
Mother said, I'm hungry. She said, I'm hungry. She was crying out. It don't get no more straightforward than that. And then shortly after that was when I started to realize that her curvature was looking a little bit more enhanced. That's what I'm going off of when I start talking about this alleged BBL. Around the time of like the Tyler Perry Studios premiere and one of her very first Ivy Park drops, conscious of her placement in the desirability hierarchy. And in confronting that even Beyoncé be scrambling to keep her spot. It also shows us that not only is it possible that pure, pristine physical beauty actually does not exist, but if it does, it's mean. She's mean. Beauty is a bitch. She takes no prisoners. She's ruthless. She's unforgiving, and she's karmic. If she don't get you the first time, she gonna spin the block. Because remember, Beyoncé was initially the muse for this particular beauty standard. But over time, that image has been remixed so much that the current iteration is so far off that even the blueprint tried to mimic the replica. So we're here now. Beyonce's alleged BBL has been reversed. Nicki speaks openly about her surgeries in interviews and songs. Rihanna, what I was trying to say here was, Rihanna, whether I'm onto something or not with my surgery speculation, I don't think she's ever admitting to a damn thing. I went further into depth about this in my Rihanna versus realism video, but essentially, our false sense of connection to Rihanna's image is actually way weirder, like way more fucked up than how we treat Nicki's image or even Bey's. And Rihanna has spent many years carefully curating that mythos, almost to the point where it's difficult for me to differentiate what aspects of her image are influenced by her true humanity and what aspects are manufactured. That's why she didn't even get that much of a mention in today's video, because she's still keeping her cards close, and I think that's going to be the name of the game for her until she retires. That's what I meant to say right here, but the cat fully cut my tongue. Women's bodies in pop culture look how they look, and desirability standards are where they are. And now that things are different, preserving mythos is no longer do or die, and manufactured beauty is something that people actually take a lot of pride in. I think that it's a form of capitalistic play, consumerist play. Like when Bia says, I invested in my body, bitch, I'm done up. So in moving forward, and this is sort of my attempt to revolutionize my relationship with plastic surgery, because as y'all know, I have a bias against it and I do not like that. It be making me feel so, like not even pick me, but something way worse. Something like, if I were to sit down and really expand on my attitudes about it, I feel like there would be a whole bunch of men in the comments agreeing with me, and that's when you know you fucked up. There just has to be another way. So Shanspeare says in her video about our dystopian obsession with beauty that studies have shown that media literacy, understanding what the media is trying to communicate to us, how and why, it's not gonna be the cure. Not at all. Because as Shania put it, it's baked into the fabric of our society. And I agree. Though in making this video, I came to recognize the power in the consciousness, especially with where we are now with desirability. Everyone is aware of the do's and don'ts and the no-nos when it comes to manufactured beauty. Everyone knows the financial risk. Everyone knows the mortality rate. Everyone knows the risk of coming out botched. But with people knowing that and still moving forward, it's almost like a political statement of sorts. When you walk around with noticeable plastic surgery, it's like an assertion of, this is where my values lie. I know the risk and I still did it anyway because I'm devoted to beauty. Is this super feminist and liberatory? No. Compared to the standard of secrecy that existed before. Is this particularly any better? No. Like, dancing for the same devil, it's just a different two-step type thing. But at least there's a shared consciousness that beauty is not divine. Because if it was so divine, we wouldn't have to be so damn strategic about communicating it. And I think beauty is shifting, I think it's shifting away from what you are and more into what you can create, which is, I mean, that's pretty cool too. Once we see this enhanced aesthetic through to the end, I do think we are definitely going to be revisiting a divinity standard again, especially with like the clean girl aesthetic and the that girl aesthetic. Those aesthetics were definitely created to defy the manufactured beauty market and bank on biological capital, as Ryan Finn calls it. But I am curious to see, at what point will we combine our lived experiences and our media literacy to strip away beauty and desirability's vitality and finally start treating it as what it should have always been, which is an option? I don't know. I think that we would have to, the incentives that beauty and desirability offer would have to be available elsewhere. What do y'all think that would look like? What do you think the world would look like if beauty and desirability didn't incentivize us the way it did? Like, if I'm stumbling over my words, that's how you know my brain's going. If we weren't given money, attention, sex, romance, respect, all those things that we get from meeting beauty and desirability standards, if we could find those things elsewhere, what would that look like? And where would it be? I'm thinking, okay, because, and I know this might be hard to believe, but prior to me being relatively popular on social media, I did not get a lot of attention for my looks. I mean, I don't want to push it, like, not so fucking much. I was getting attention, but definitely not to the degree that I get it now. But even still, even though I rose to popularity and thus started to get more attention because of my big ass fucking brain and my videos, people still, one way or another, people bring it back to my looks. They bring it back to my face, they bring it back to my makeup, how I dress, all that. So it's like, while I did receive those incentives for doing something that wasn't beauty related, my beauty was still the epicenter. I don't know. We're gonna have to think about this, y'all. We are gonna have to think. Thank you all so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. This is definitely one of my no conclusion, no solution type videos, but I do want to say thank you to my amazing, lovely patrons for all of your support. Hit me up, patreon.com/TNoir if you want that exclusive. And if you want to keep up with me across other social media, I do have a Twitter, I do have an Instagram. I'm so kind of active on Twitter here and there. I have been hitting up Instagram a lot these days though, so you can follow me on there. But you should know that over there on Instagram, now that's where I am really just a teenage girl in her late 20s. I'm so serious. All it is, a cultural critic, essayist, super analytical, it stays right here. It stays right here. Don't you bring that mess over there, because over on Instagram, I don't know nothing about that. Thank you for respecting my duality. Be sure to leave your thoughts and your comments down below. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, however you're feeling today. And subscribe for more content. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.